Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name's Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. We've made it halfway through the week. I'm excited to get till tomorrow, till Friday, Saturday, relax a little bit. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Devang and Islam and Ruth and Sam, Michael, Ryan, Ankita, Laura, Kareem, Kara. Great to see everyone here. Yeah, Ryan, halfway through the week. We're almost there. All right, today is day number 7 of the Adobe XD Daily Challenge, which means we only have 2 more days left of this round. Sad, but there will be definitely more challenges in the future. So head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD. You can receive all the information about these daily challenges, not just for this challenge, but for future challenges as well. Hit the big blue register button at the top yet if you haven't yet. Every single day you're going to receive a challenge, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday. You can also join us in our community chat, which is on Discord. You can get all the information about the challenges. You can talk amongst your fellow designers. 55,000 designers in Discord. It's a crazy amount. You can ask questions, share tips and tricks. More importantly, you can also share your work in the Current Challenge channel. That's a mouthful. Current Challenge channel. Say that 5 times fast. I can't. You can also watch me live Monday to Friday, 2 o'clock Pacific time until Friday. Then we'll have another host. But you will also have a ton of content throughout the week on all sorts of subjects. I can't talk today. XD, Illustrator, we just had Dimension, which is amazing, Photoshop, a lot of cool stuff. And then you can share your work using the keyword XD Daily Challenge on Behance or in Discord. All right, so catching up from last week, we tackled a landing page using background blur to add a bit of depth. We then explored an interactive map using scroll groups. And let me go ahead, thank you for the follow, by the way, but let me go ahead and turn on Do Not Disturb. Boop, there we go. And then we went on to a drop-down menu using nested hover, now possible as of the Max release. We looked at card flip, a card flip animation using auto animate and 3D transforms. Then we moved on to an augmented reality experience. And this was one of my favorite challenges of all time. It was just so fun. If you missed that video, go ahead and watch it. I had a lot of fun doing that one. Yesterday, we tackled a presentation template using components and states. And then today, we're going to be looking at how to build out a slide-out menu using component states. So go ahead and press Get Started. It's going to launch Adobe XD. And there we go. Creative Cloud's going to spring open. It's going to download the file. And it's on my other monitor. There we go. Let me bring this over here and we are going to get going. All right. So this is what we're going to be building out today. You know, sometimes I put some inspiration and it looks like I goofed and put yesterday's inspiration in this square here. But usually I put some inspiration from other people. But, you know, I created this a while back and we're going to create this today, which I think is perfect for this particular challenge. All right. So let's hop over to our artboard right over here to the right. And Kita says the AR one was lit. I agree. It was pretty, also full of neon, which is great. If you like cyberpunk or neon stuff, check that one out. A lot of fun. All right. So we're going to be building out our menu over on this artboard. Now we're going for more of a darker theme for this one. Gotta love dark mode, right? So I'm going to change the artboard color to a nice dark shade, not pure black. Because then it's just, you know, of course, pure black is great if you have an OLED display. Saves battery life. But I just like bringing that up just a little bit, right? Just like that. So now, since we want the initial state to be collapsed, we're going to start with a smaller rectangle. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool from the left-hand side and drag one on out just like this. We'll say, you know, maybe this is about the width of this particular menu, right? And I'm going to round out the corners a little bit. Now, if you want to, you can also bring back the corners on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to hold down my Alt-Option key and drag this back on in. You can also achieve that within your Properties Inspector as well. Let me scroll down to the bottom, hold down Alt-Option, and boop, bring that back on in. All right. Now, in terms of the color, we want it to stand out from the background a little bit. So this one might be a little bit darker, or it might be a little bit lighter, completely up to you. And I am going to add a little bit of a border on the inside. It's going to be a little bit lighter than the actual container, just like that, right? We can also add a shadow if we wanted to, but we're going to leave it as is, and we'll see how this looks. Now, obviously, this is a strange, this would probably be best on maybe a tablet experience. So, you know what, maybe we'll drag this on out, just to give us a little bit more room. Maybe we'll turn this into a tablet experience, or an iPad, or iPad is a tablet, or, whatever it might be. Completely up to you. And these are the cool things about the challenges, is that you can mold them to your fancy, right? If you want tablet, phone, whatever it might be. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to start adding in some content to this navigation bar. Now, at the top left-hand corner, we might want an open icon or a menu icon or whatever it might be, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my line tool, draw one out right there. Let's make it a little bit thicker. I'm going to change the color to white. Maybe I'll round out the caps with this icon right here. Boop. And now we want 2 additional ones going down this menu. So I'm going to hold down my Alt-Option key, drag down, and now we have a nice little menu icon. And if you wanted to, you can space this out just a little bit more. There we go. Perfect. Now, to keep things organized, we're going to go ahead and group these, Command and Control G, and menu. Perfect. All right, now in a little bit, we are going to get a bit fancy, and we're going to animate this menu icon, but we'll get there. Okay, so going down this, we want some additional icons of all the things you can explore and navigate on this particular application. And to help us with that, we can either hop into our plugins panel and go into our icons for design library and search, let's say, home, for example. And there's lots of different icons that we can use. There's even a funeral home if you want to get really dark with this challenge, right? Can we use repeat grids on the line? So you technically can. However, because I'm going to be eventually animating this menu icon to look like a close icon, it'll make things a little bit more complicating when you're talking about using a repeat grid. So in this case, it's only 3 lines. You might as well, keep it as is. All right, so I'm going to drag this down here. We've got our home icon. Now it's a little bit too small, so I'm going to just bump it up in size, just like that, right? And change the color to white. Beautiful. Now, I'm not too worried about the spacing just yet. We're going to get to the spacing in a moment. And now we might want maybe a bell icon for our notifications. And this one looks pretty fancy. And same thing. I'm going to bump this up in size, just like that. Change the color to white, right? And the next one is maybe there'll be a video section. So maybe we'll do camera. Let's see if there's a video camera in here. There's that one. It's an okay camera. Let's try video. This one's a bit better. Pop that in here. I just realized I'm not playing my music as I usually do. I will have to fix that for tomorrow. And the next one, we might want some sort of a chart, right? Maybe a pie chart or a line chart. This could be an analytics section, for example. So I'll make that a little bit larger. And then finally, we might want settings. And this one looks pretty good. All right, so we've got all of our icons on our artboard ready to go. What we want to make sure to do is we want to make sure that they're all nicely aligned. So I'm going to set the top and bottom ones where I want them, right? So maybe the home icon looks pretty good about there. And then the bottom icon, I'm going to drag down and pop it maybe right about there. I want a little bit of breathing room at the bottom just so it's not right down there. And of course, if you're working on a mobile, let's say iPhone, for example, right? There's that home indicator at the bottom. So you don't want anything down there. Now that these icons are down here at the bottom, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to click, 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 and click, right? So we've got all of our icons selected, and then right here at the top right-hand corner, we are going to press on this icon right here, which is the distribute vertically, right? So it's going to take a look at, it's going to take a look at your topmost icon, your bottommost icon, and make sure everything else in between is nicely spaced out, right? And that looks okay. Now, if you want to, you can also include your menu icon in that as well. So let's do that, for example, right? It may work, it may not work, may not make sense. Who knows? We'll see. So this is about 103.5 pixels from the bottom, very specific. But we're going to make sure to do something very similar with the menu icon. and you can hold down your Alt or Option key to make sure that everything is lining, or you can check the measurement, right? Now again, I'm going to select all of these, distribute vertically, and that looks okay, right? It looks interesting. I don't know how I feel about that, but you know what? We'll see. Well, we're going to run with it. But the point of this is we want an inactive state or a collapse state, which might be our home screen, and then we want it to expand when everything else is viewed. So to set that stage up, right, we want to indicate what, which icon is active. So I'm going to grab my line tool, draw one out right about here. I'm going to make this a nice pinkish red color, make this nice and thick, just like that, right? Line it up with home. And there is, and there is our active icon, right? Our active screen. Now for the other ones, I may want to drop them in opacity just a little bit. So I'm going to bring the opacity down until they look fairly inactive, but not too much. If you go down this far, might cause some accessibility issues. Even this might cause some accessibility issues. So keep that in mind, right? All right, so that's looking okay, right? Now what we also want to do is we want to start thinking about what the next state looks like, or the expanded state. So for that, to help us out with that process, we're going to add some text. So with my text tool, I'm going to click and we'll type out home. Pop-ins, you know what? We'll go with pop-ins. We're going to run with it. I'm going to set this color to white. Make sure it lines up really nicely. And it'll probably be about here, right? Maybe about here. Now we're going to go down to here to notifications. Duplicate, and again, I'm holding down Alt or Option and dragging down to duplicate videos, just like that. Duplicate down one more time. Analytics, and finally, we've got our settings. Whoops, there we go. Okay, perfect. Now, initially, because we're working on our collapsed state first, these specific icons or these specific text layers are not going to be visible. So what we're going to want to do is not only move these away, right? And maybe just to add a little bit of fun, we'll stagger them too, right? But we want them hidden. Now, of course, we can go ahead and just drop the opacity, for example, but we can also utilize a mask. And I think this is going to be kind of fun. So I'm going to select this, I'm going to call it container. And I'm going to select the container, I'm going to copy it, and just paste it at the very top of all of this information. And what I want to do now is use this container as a mask. So I'm going to select literally everything underneath it. Everything, from the text layers to the icons, which I should probably group, I'll get around to that in a minute, down to the actual container down at the bottom. And then once all of that's selected under the object menu, you're going to go mask with shape. You can also right-click and mask with shape as well, especially if you're on Windows where there's no menu bar. So mask with shape. And it looks like it just did before, right? But inside of that mask, we'll be able to see our various text layers, which are now hidden by the shape that we just created. So let's go ahead and name this menu. And I am going to go ahead also and just group some of these. Group icons, and we're going to group these. We'll call this text. And this might be indicator, right? Just like that. Perfect. Looks good. Now that that's set up, we can start working on our expanded states. So what I want to do now is convert this entire menu into a component. You can do that inside of your libraries panel right over here. Press the plus button beside component. You can also do it inside of your properties inspector to the top right. And the benefit of that is that immediately you can create a new state. So I can press new state just like that. And let's name this notifications. Bam, right? So now that the notification state has been created and is active, we need to start expanding this menu and really focusing on that notification section, right? So what I want to do, I'm also thinking of something, right? Because if I go back to my default state, if I open up my mask, right? You're going to notice all of these text layers are all set to white, but we only want the home icon set to white. So I'm just going to actually drop the opacity of all of them in my group to 50%. And then, well, home is not going to be really seen, so we can probably keep it at 50%. All right. So now into the notification state we go. We're going to start by expanding this menu. And you may think that you can just grab the container in the back and pull it on out. And you're half right, right? If I click away, it looks the same as it did before. That's because we also have to adjust our mask. So I've got the container layer selected. I'm going to hold down my control key or command key, click. So I have the mask and the container shape selected, and now I can pull this out just like that, right? And I've got my expanded state. So now what I can do is I can go ahead, I'm going to move this group with all the text layers over to the left. And now I want them all to be aligned with the home text layer on that left hand side, right? So I'm going to select all these text layers, and then again, back up to the top, I'm going to go ahead and press this icon right here, which is align left. Bam, right? And of course, we want notifications to be active. So I'm going to click on that one, set it to 100%, do the same thing for the icon, and then home, drop it down to 50%. And maybe to give it a little bit of flair, we may want to go in here and just maybe rotate this just a tiny bit, right? Just like that. Beautiful. And of course, you can use stacks for this process as well. I didn't cover that today, but we'll definitely be covering it possibly tomorrow, possibly if I'm thinking correctly, but definitely we're going to be covering stacks on Friday. So before we move on, right, there's one more thing we want to do. I mentioned it earlier. We might want to animate this menu icon at the top. So to do that, we're going to hop into this menu icon. And instead of a menu icon or this hamburger icon, we might want it to look like a close icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by grabbing the top line. I'm going to rotate it about 45 degrees. Or maybe this one will be negative 45 degrees. Negative 45. And this one here will be 45, right? And I'm going to make sure that they're centered like that. And for this line in the middle, all I have to do is hold down my Alt or Option key and whoop, bring it on in. Just like that, right? Perfect. Oh, and I also want to take this indicator and move it on down so it lines up with our notifications. Just like that, all right? So now that that state has been complete, let's actually see this in action, right? We've got our default state, we have our notification state, and now we want to see this all in action, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to prototype mode right here at the top. I'm going to select the object that I want users to trigger this action. So I'm going to double click into this mask, select the notification bell, and I'm going to simply click on it. This will allow me within the properties inspector to choose a destination state. So I'm going to choose the notification state that we just created. And let's go ahead and choose, let's try in and out and a 0.8 seconds. Well, a little bit slow, but not too slow that it's painful to look at, right? So let's see this in action. Press the play button at the top. We've got our artboard, and there we go, right? And now we can go back to our notification state, click on, let's say, the home icon, and go back to our default state. So now we can go there, and you're taking a look at the top, right? That icon, right? Laura says, that looks cool already. Yeah, it's kind of fun, right? It's a little bit too slow, probably, possibly, I don't know, we'll see. Let's try 0.6. I think it's a little bit better actually, right? So now I can go back to my, default state, change this over to 0.6 seconds, right? Beautiful. So now what we can do is maybe we want an additional element in here. We'll get to the other states in a second, but let's say you wanted a search bar to kind of come in from the right, and right about here it'll settle in, right? So what you want to make sure to do is don't add it to one of the states. Add it to your default state, right? So that way it pushes it to all the other ones. So right in here, if I dive into the mask, I'm going to grab a rectangle. That's not a rectangle. This is a rectangle. And draw one out, just like this, right? I'm going to round out the corners. Let me actually bring it in here just so I can kind of get the colors right. And this might be a little bit darker, right? And then we'll have a little bit of a border, very subtle search field. And then back in our plugins, let's look up search. Whoops. There we go. And the feather icon looks pretty fancy. Change the color. Do we want to go pure white? Maybe not. Maybe we can actually match it to this inactive color here. Makes it a little bit smaller. Make sure it's centered, right? And I'm going to make sure to group both of these elements. Search. And I can pop this over here to the right. Just make sure it lines up with our menu. Drag it on over. And now what you're going to notice, because I added it to the default state of the main component, if I go into the notifications state, there it is, right? Of course, it's not in place yet, so I can just, whoops, grab it and, nope, I missed it. Drag it on over. Look at that. Looks perfect, right? So now if we do this one more time, bam, we've got our search field, right? I love those subtle borders. Again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, sometimes if they're not done correctly, and this may not be done correctly, so you know, don't take my word for it, but you know, they could cause accessibility issues. And this, I would probably say, this would not pass, right? So make sure you're paying attention to accessibility. All right, so now that that one is looking pretty good, we can go on to our other states. And what I can do is I can actually go to my notification state to make my life a little bit easier. And I'm going to create a new state from here, just so that it keeps this entire view in place, right? So now I can just dive in here, 50%, 50%. I'm going to rotate this back, right? And videos, we're going to bump this up to 100%. We're going to grab our indicator, drag this on down, just like that. 100%, press the 0 key on the keyboard. You can rotate this a little bit, let's say 15%. And then we're going to do another one. We're going to do a new state and analytics. And you basically repeat the process. It's a never-ending process, isn't it? 0, whoops, 50%. Whoop, drag this on down. 100, 100. And, oh, I got to go in here and boop, just like that, right? If the notification bell rings, it would be lit. You know, Ankita, XD does support audio triggers. So let's actually go to prototype mode one more time, right? Let's go from our default state to prototype mode. If you were to create an animation and a transition from notifications, right? Right down here at the bottom, you can press that plus button, audio playback, load in an MP3 file from your computer that goes ding. I probably have one somewhere, but I don't have one off the top of my hand, but you can do that, right? So now that that's looking pretty good, we're going to go to this icon and we're going to go to videos. This one is going to go to analytics. I didn't do the settings one yet. That's okay, right? And then we can go to the notifications section. Let's go to, which one is this? Video, and then analytics, right? And then we're going to go to video, notifications, analytics, and then finally, we're going to go to our analytics state, go back to video, or videos, and then notifications. I also didn't go to home. I should probably do that. And default state. All right, I think I missed a few, specifically these ones here. Let me quickly do this before we see the entire thing in action. Notifications, okay, that one looking pretty good. All right, what's the shortcut key for increasing the opacity? Is just the number of keys in your keyboard. So if you want to do 50%, press the number 5. If you want to do 20%, press, I don't know why I'm looking down, 22, right? It's pretty simple. All right, so now that this is all looking pretty good, from our my space bar is spazzing out. From our default state, we're going to press the play button at the top, notifications, videos, analytics. I didn't do any animation there just yet, but actually what we can do, if you want to get a little bit fancy, in your analytics state very quickly, I can dive in here. Now, even though this is one solid object made up of a path, I can grab these points and just move them on out, right? So now we've got, look at that, a little piece of the pie just kind of popped out. And we can just kind of go through all these different sections in no particular order because it's all built into components and states. And when we go back home, that menu icon turns back into a hamburger and it's looking pretty good, right? Your notifications bar is giving the ding noise. You're right, Ankita. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for today. There it is again. I don't know what's going on with my keyboard. Big thank you to everyone who has joined me today. I'm excited to see all of the amazing work that you produce. Have some fun with it. Add things like audio triggers, add background blurs, because everything needs a background blur, right? Have fun, post it in Discord, post on Behance. I'm going to be back tomorrow with day number 8, and then Friday with day number 9.